There we go.
You don't have to do anything, automatically do it.
Cool. That'll work. Right back. Okay. I think I hear Ethan.
Lois isn't gonna make it. She's got her grandkids today.
Yeah, she stopped by for a second and said that, yeah, yep. And Pam's helping out with the brunch. I didn't realize there were two of them. I thought there was just one. Realized they were doing 2 days now.
I don't remember hearing about the brunch at the time.
Actually, like when we were in church, she was giving the announcements after.
That's the first time I heard about it.
Well, she told me like that we had brunch. She's like, asked me if I wanted to join the brunch after this. And then she said it in church, like, oh, if you want to go over there. And I was like, in my head, I was like, babe, like, there's like an hour between, like we're not, like, they can't do that. And then got here and was like, oh, no, they can. They're doing it twice. Yeah, okay, good.
So they're saying.
So my wife, did know how to do her job.
Yes. Of course she
It's like,
does.
and I'm the idiot. That makes sense. That tracks. Probably should start with that one. What did you guys think of this one? Did you get a chance to read much of it?
Yeah, this one was good. I mean. Very. Kind of turning the point on its head,
Mhm.
take a little bit.
Yeah. Kierkegaard doing Kierkegaard stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I like this one because like it how to say it? Like it does a good job of like I like it because it's the most dangerous one in a way. Like it's the easiest one to get to read and be like, oh, he doesn't care about the poor. But he doesn't care if you're poor or not. Like because
Right.
especially that section where he's like, talking he's almost like disparaging like people who think that worldly suffering matters.
right,
And it's like it's not at all what he's saying, but it is. I guess what I'm saying, I like the courage that he has to like speak in that way. Like, hey, like normally people don't talk about like taking care of worldly suffering as the highest, and the danger in not talking about the highest is that they'll think that you think it's therefore not important at all.
right,
And that I mean it's like it's kind of like if you and this is a bad example, but if if you are not radically anti-abortion, but you do think there's some questions about how we institute it, talking about that is difficult because you can just get shouted down. Like, like it's just like he's not afraid to do that ever, which I like. She's like, all right, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about like way eternity sees it and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead.
right.
No, are they coming?
I don't know.
The voice went away.
Yeah,
I think they might have gone in for.
that's all right. Well, if it's just us, it's just us, no big deal. Um, yeah, let's start with the Samaritan and like the two parables. Thanks. Appreciate it, Jeff. Let's start with the second paragraph under the mercifulness, a work of love, even if it can give nothing and is able to do nothing, that section. Do you have an extra if you want it?
Yeah.
293.
Yeah, thank you.
I actually prepared. I knew what was coming next.
This was.
I actually left my book and my notes in North Carolina, so they're being shipped to me, but they won't be here till Monday.
That's fun.
Yeah. That's all right. It gave me a chance to read it in this new translation. So, mercifulness has nothing to give. It follows of itself that if the merciful person has something to give, he will more than gladly give it. But we do not want to focus attention upon that, but upon this, that one can be merciful without having the least thing to give. And this is of great importance, as of course being able to be merciful is far greater perfection than having money and thus being able to give. If that man, well known for 1800 years, the merciful Samaritan, had come not riding but walking along the road from Jericho to Jerusalem, where he saw the unfortunate man lying, if he had not brought anything with him with which he could bind his wounds, if he had then lifted the unfortunate man up, taken him across his shoulders, carried him to the nearest inn, where, however, the proprietor refused to receive him either, to receive either him or that unfortunate man, because the Samaritan did not possess even the smallest amount of money, and pleaded in vain with this hard-hearted man to be merciful, because, after all, it was a matter of a person's life. If he had not, therefore, but no, the story isn't finished yet. So if then the Samaritan, far from losing patience over this, had gone away carrying the unfortunate man, if he had sought a softer place for the wounded man to rest, if he had sat by his side and done all he could to stop the loss of blood, but the unfortunate man died in his hands, would he not then have been just as merciful, precisely as merciful, as that merciful Samaritan? Or is there anything to object to in calling this the story of the merciful Samaritan? Take the story of the woman who put 2 pennies in the temple box, but let us make a little poetic alteration. The 2 pennies represented a great sum to her, and she had not acquired them all at once. She had long scrimped in order to accumulate them, and she wrapped them in a little cloth in which to carry them when she herself went up to the temple. But a pickpocket had noticed that she possessed these coins and pilfered them from her, and had put a similar looking cloth containing nothing in their place, concerning which the widow knew nothing. So she went up to the temple, put, as she believed, the 2 pennies, that is, the nothing, into the temple box. Wouldn't Christ, wouldn't Christ nonetheless have said of her that she gave more than all the rich? But a mercifulness without money, what is that supposed to mean? Indeed, finally, the worldly impudence of charity and generosity goes so far as it even makes fun of a mercifulness that possesses nothing. But indeed,
Got it. All right. Now, I'm not sure what happens after that. Oh, we're not so late.
nope, just reading.
I left your wife's sermon today and I wondered when she was talking about being in a crowd that encouraged her. She was downtown yesterday.
She was, and I wondered the same thing. I was like, are you gonna bring it up?
Without offending anybody, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
most of us
She
could
does a
glean
really
from
good
that.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where she was, yeah.
Yep.
She wasn't one of the ones on stage, though.
No, she was not. No, I think she would literally jump off a bridge before she would do that.
I was so excited that they found out the Christian nationalism and it was.
Yep. What page is it, Josh?
294.
294. No, we're just reading. I don't know. Did you get a chance to read it at all? Oh, it's all right. That's fine.
Really though, but
I mean, it's fine. It's suggested extra reading. It's not necessary.
you're very good about that.
Well, that's why we're,
Discussion.
Yeah.
To make it sense to me when I read this.
Well, and I just told somebody at breakfast, I understand very little, but I always walk away with something.
Yep.
And I think that's.
well, let me start over with the two stories again. So we're on, yeah, you said 293. We're just reading about he's recasting the story of the Samaritan and the woman with 2 pennies. So if that man, well known for 1800 years, the merciful Samaritan, had come not riding, but walking along the road from Jericho to Jerusalem, where he saw the unfortunate man lying, if he had not brought anything with him with which he could bind his wounds, if he had then lifted the unfortunate man up, taken him across his shoulders, carried him to the nearest inn, where, however, the proprietor refused to receive either him or that unfortunate man, because the Samaritan did not possess even the smallest amount of money, and pleaded in vain with this hard-hearted man to be merciful, because, after all, it was a matter of a person's life, if he had not, therefore, but no, the story isn't finished yet. So if then the Samaritan, far from losing patience over this, had gone away carrying the unfortunate man, if he had sought a softer place for the wounded man to rest, if he had sat by his side and done all that he could to stop the loss of blood, but the unfortunate man died in his hands, would he not then have been just as merciful, precisely as merciful, as that merciful Samaritan? Or is there anything to object in calling this the story of the merciful Samaritan? Take the story of the woman who put 2 pennies in the temple box, but let us make a little poetic alteration. The 2 pennies represented a great sum to her. She had not acquired them all at once. She had long scrimped in order to accumulate them, and she wrapped them in a little cloth in which to carry them when she went herself up to the temple. A pickpocket had noticed that she possessed these coins, had pilfered them from her, and had put a similar looking cloth containing nothing in their place, concerning which the widow knew nothing. So she went up to the temple, put, as she believed, the 2 pennies, that is, the nothing, into the temple box. Wouldn't Christ nonetheless have said of her that she gave more than all the rich? But a mercifulness without money, what is that supposed to mean? Indeed, finally, the worldly impudence of charity and generosity goes so far that that it even makes fun of a mercifulness that possesses nothing. But indeed, this is already unjust and outrageous enough, a mercilessness of this earthly existence, that when the poor person gives her last little coin and the rich person comes and gives hundreds of dollars, that everyone looks at the hundreds of dollars. That is, with his gift, the rich person entirely eclipses the poor person's mercifulness. But what madness if what Christ indeed says is true, that the poor person gave most. What madness that the person who gives less, the rich person and the large sum of money, eclipses the person who gives more, the poor person and the little mite. Yes, indeed eclipses the person who gives the most. But of course, that is not what the world says. It says that the rich person gave the most. And why does the world say that? Because the world only understands about money, and Christ only about mercifulness. And precisely because Christ understood only about mercifulness, he was so particular about the fact that it was only 2 pennies that the widow gave. And precisely for that reason, he would not say that even that much was required, or that one could even give less, and yet, by giving less, give even more. I like this because, number one, it's carrying the logic of being merciful to its end. That mercifulness is not a matter of worldly means. It would be a large problem if being merciful, the level to which a human being could be merciful was determined by temporal worldly states of being poor, being rich, having a lot, having a little. And I think one of the things that Kierkegaard is trying to point out too is that oftentimes it is harder to be merciful when you are rich. I think this is in line with Christ's teachings on wealth and on the relation of wealth to the spirit, which is that a lot of times it makes it more difficult to do some of the things that Christ is asking because most of these things have to do with the heart. And what I wrote on the side of my notes is, and this is, I think what this is trying to say is that mercifulness has a cost, but not a price. That it costs you something. It's not just that, oh, it should hurt. It doesn't hurt. But the hurt isn't the point. But the point is that if we're giving in such a way that that our heart is in the right place with it, then it's going to come naturally and not perfunctorily. I think it's really easy. Like it's easy. It's kind of like we talked about a week or two ago, or I guess definitely 2 weeks ago, because I wasn't here last week. That I lost my train of thought for a second there. Cost price. Oh, that if that in First John when he says if anyone sees their brother or sister in need and doesn't give them the things to buy on the things of the world that they need, well then the love of Christ is not in them. I think it's really easy. I think it's a similar thing. It's easy to remember that we're being called to give looking to others first as opposed to just when our needs are met. And so for me, like it's a lot harder for me to give, like I think of my 30s where I was single and I had a job where I was making a lot of money sometimes and not much sometimes. And it was really easy for me to be generous when, times are good and the bills, I know my bills are all paid this week. But then, those like winter months when I wasn't making as much money, it's like, man, I don't know if I give this, like I see this need, if I give, man, I don't know, I might not make my electric payment or, all those things that they start to worry about and start to self-protect. And yeah, I mean, it would be bad if I was excused from being merciful when I had less. Because not only would it create a situation in which I'm delineating between, when I have to do things and when I have moral responsibilities to others as opposed to when I don't. But also it would mean that those who are born poor are less able to be fully human, which would be a real problem. So I think it's good that he protects that. It does open us up to some questions that he gets to later, but I think it's a good place to start and begin. Um, I think this is interesting. It's about, for me, it's about 3 or 4 pages later. The sentence starts, yet money, money, money. It is. Holy cows.
I read the lesson.
Huh. Yeah. Yep. All right. Yep. Money, money, money. When he turned his back on mighty Rome, that foreign prince supposedly said, "Here lies a city that is for sale and is only waiting for a buyer." Ah, how often hasn't one been tempted despondently to turn one's back on the whole of existence with these words: "Here lies a world that is for sale and is only waiting for a buyer." That is, provided one doesn't want to say that the devil has already bought it. What is life's earnestness? If you have truly posed this earnest question to yourself, if you have, what is life's earnestness? If you have truly posed this earnest question to yourself, then recall how you have answered it. Or let me remind you of how you have answered it. Earnestness is a person's relationship to God. Wherever the thought of God is included in what a person does, thinks, says, there is earnestness. In that, there is earnestness. But money is the world's God. Therefore it, i.e., the world, believes that everything has to do with money or related to money is earnestness. Look, that noble, simple, wise man of antiquity, he would not take money for his instruction, and the Apostle Paul preferred to work with his hands rather than contaminate the gospel and devalue his apostolic service and falsify the proclamation of the word by taking money for it. What does the world judge concerning things of this sort? Yes, let us not ask foolishly how the world judges. Yes, let us not foolishly ask how the world judges of that noble, simple, wise man or that holy apostle, because the world has now memorized a sort of eulogy that it delivers over them. But if today, right now, someone were to do as those two did, how would the present judge him? It would judge that it is their eccentricity, that it is quixotic. It would judge that a person lacks earnestness. Because to make money, that is earnestness, making a lot of money, even if it was by selling human beings, that is earnestness. To make a lot of money by despicable slander, that is earnestness. To proclaim something that is true, if in addition one makes a lot of money for what matters is not that it is true, but that one makes money, that is earnestness. For money, 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 that is earnestness. That is how we are brought up from earliest childhood, disciplined in the ungodly worship of money. I think we all think of that a lot. Like that's not, I don't think that's new, but it struck me when he brought up child. That is how we are all brought up from earliest childhood, disciplined in the ungodly worship of money. I grew up pretty lower middle class. We weren't poor, but I mean, like I grew up until I was 12 in Chicago suburbs near Lake Forest, which is the richest suburb in all the state. That's where Michael Jordan lives. And like I remember going to school and my everybody had the new Jordans the minute they came out, and I did not, and you would, I would think because of that, like, oh, I didn't grow up worshiping money. Like only rich people can grow up worshiping money. And about 10 seconds of thought dispels that notion because yeah, I saw that, that I was taught that the people who had money were the valuable people. And whether you were in that and that gets into your soul, or whether you are not in that and that gets into your soul through bitterness or through like, oh, well, if they're going to value themselves with money, then I'm going to value myself at least I'm a good person. Like there's a million ways, but I think that in pretty much every society, we all tend to do that from a very young age. And even in things that we think of as good. Like one of the things that strikes me is I grew up always hearing that like something that was really important was to have a good work ethic. And on the face side of that, like that's a good thing. Like there's nothing, you can't say that having a good work ethic is bad. Like it's a good thing to have. But the way that that was communicated was you needed to get, like the people who the paradigms of people that were great work ethics were the people that, never missed a day at their job and went to their job and worked 40 years for the same company and worked hard for them. And it's like you get a little bit older and you're like, this company doesn't care about me. Why do I why is being a good citizen working for a company, giving them my labor and then working 40 years and dying? Like the idea that that making a company money, being a good producer of value is something that is good. Well, just another way to tell somebody that money is our God. And not to disparage that, obviously. Like there's value in going to work and being a good worker, but you just get these little things that all add up to or kind of chip away at the idea that God is God and that money actually is what we really, really worship, what we give our time to, what we give our effort to. And I think it's just good to acknowledge that, I guess a better way to say it is this is another way that we can reconnect to some of the foreignness of the gospel. Because when we read the gospels, they're weird. It's a totally, totally shockingly different audience that they're being written to. It is very hard sometimes to get into that society and to compare it to ours. In some ways, it's very easy. Some things are universal, but sometimes it's hard to find those universals. And for me, like when the New Testament is talking about mammon, the God of money, like it's like, oh yeah, no, that's still here. I get that. Like even 2,000 years ago, the same problems. Everybody wants money. Everybody wants wealth, and we're all worshiping it, and our society revolves around it. There's a unity, a scarlet thread that runs straight from Jesus's time straight to ours, and in a lot of senses, nothing's changed. Some senses, everything has changed, but in that sense, that's the same. Like we still worship this, and so decoupling the state of our heart and our ability to be merciful from that societal role, from that view of money is an important thing to do in our own hearts and heads, and then also just as Christians in the way that we conceptualize these things. Any thoughts?
I had one about work ethic.
Okay.
I don't want to offend anybody because I love the man, but Ray Gaylord was probably the epitome of workaholic. Gave everything to this church, but at the detriment to his family, I think. And that always kind of worked on me a little bit. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
But I also want to say, like a strong work ethic, it's not always about money. Darcy worked in elementary school. Her work ethic took care of a lot of kids. Gail's an occupational therapist. Her work ethic helps these kids get better at what
Yep.
they're doing. And so I don't think having a strong work ethic is a negative thing.
Definitely not. Definitely not. It's 100% a good thing. It's what I was trying to point out is what society does with that. Like, well, they'll take even a good thing and warp it. And when I was growing up, my intention was to show how, like, when I was growing up, being told like, oh, go work for the company, go, like the people who were even in movies, you see, like, in 90s movies, you see like the guy who goes to the coal mine for 40 years and just works and works to provide for his family. Like that the part of working hard to provide for your family is real. But the part that they would add to it is, look how he sacrificed for the company. Look how and it's like, yeah, but this company doesn't care about him. But he's down in the coal mines getting black lung disease, and in about 20 years, they're gonna have a lawsuit and they're gonna say we didn't know, and they knew, and this corporation that all you are to them is just a number. They could care less about you. Like when we're told that, hey, to be a good person, you need to be a good unit of value for society in terms of making wealth and creating wealth. Like, I'm not trying to get into any sort of political, discussion about economics. I'm happy to have that, but that's not the point here. But I won't pretend like I don't have opinions on it, but that's not what I'm doing here. Like it's just a matter of the society is built around this. It's built around, and they'll take even good things like work ethic and twist it into something that it shouldn't be. If I have a son, I'm going to tell him that a work ethic is important. But one thing I would want to be very clear about is that your work ethic has nothing to do with how much money you make or how much value that you create. Yeah, like divorcing those two is important. I think he's doing that here.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing, like Darcy pointed out, there's something about moderation, right? I mean, when somebody says earnestness or work ethic, those are great words, except what do they mean? They mean nothing. Like your definition of work ethic and my definition of work ethic or earnestness or whatever. It's kind of like, I drive the perfect speed. People that drive faster than me are maniacs. People who drive slower than me are fuddy duddies.
I don't know anything about that.
It's just it's just right.
Yeah.
So you say the same thing about work ethic and earnestness. You might say you have a strong work ethic until you see somebody like Ray Gaylord, guy, you're like, gosh, you know what I mean? Or you might feel like you're doing well financially until you come across a billionaire and you're like, geez, so it's all relative. So I guess that's the thing. When he starts kind of going after money, I'm like, yeah, that's an easy target to, blame somebody who's been financially successful. But, I think it's the worship of money or the worship of status or the worship of, position or how a community value you, to begin with. I think that's what gets you into issues. So to me, it's an argument of moderation and making sure that's you're being a good Christian by your own definition and relationship with God.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think earnestness is a matter of moderation. For Kierkegaard, I think he would say earnestness is actually a matter of something that is continuous. Like you are either being earnest or you're not in each moment. That you are either because striving is an active word.
In each moment.
Yeah, in each earnest.
I failed.
Yeah, we all do. Yeah, and that is a core part of his point is that I mean, for Kierkegaard, be earnest in every moment. That is another way to say be perfect as your Holy Father in heaven is perfect. You're not going to be, but that's the call. In every single moment of your life, be seeking, striving to respond to the grace you've been given with gratitude and therefore seeking to enact it in others' lives. Well, yeah, okay, but that is what I'm going to strive to do more and more. For Kierkegaard, it's the increasingness of the repetition of that moment. That okay, well, if I do it 8 moments today, it's easier to do it 12 tomorrow. And if I do it 12 today, it's easier to do it 14 moments tomorrow. And then Kierkegaard later on in one of his journals talks about stealing moments. That if you can just capture a few more than you normally would, that is victory. And the next, just to get the title correct. Yeah, the victory of reconciliation and love, which wins the person who has already been overcome. All these moments are already won. But it is up to us to strive to give that which Christ has already won for us. It's what makes Kierkegaard, I think, so comforting and also so just absolutely brutal. Which is brutal to you when you think that you've got it or you're doing enough. And when you are kicking yourself because you're not doing enough, he comes alongside and comforts and says, no, it's okay. Keep trying. Like grace is with you. Like it's just keep trying. But do you have your hand up?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, I do like just real quick. He says, be merciful. Yes, look, here it is again. With this, who doesn't immediately and involuntarily think of the beggar's cry to the rich man? Be merciful. How wrong this use of language is, as it is generosity that's being invoked here. And therefore we speak language more correctly. We who say to the poor, to the poorest of all, be merciful. Do not finally allow the envious pettiness of this earthly existence to corrupt you in such a way that you could forget that you are capable of being merciful, corrupt you in a way that a false shame smothers what is best in you. it's another example of Kierkegaard talking to everyone. Like when I think of, it is weird to hear a talk about generosity and mercifulness addressed to the poor as if that have the possibility of doing something wrong. Which I think is good because
Wait,
there
can
is,
you say that one more time?
yeah, it's weird when we hear like a pastor's gonna give a tough talk about being merciful. We would normally think that the toughness is directed to people who are rich because they're not giving enough, right? That's like usually what we expect. And Kierkegaard here is saying, hey, like that's when we to think immediately of the beggar's cry to the rich man, be merciful. He says that's not correct. We can say this just as easily to the poor, be merciful. Like, and he says, do not forget that you, the poor, are capable of being merciful. Don't let it corrupt you in such a way that a false shame smothers what is best in you. And it goes back to that story of the Samaritan that, even if you just sit with them while they bleed out, because there's nothing you can do. You're so incapable, uh you're so materially poor that you don't even have you're naked. You can't even rip a piece of cloth off to staunch the bleeding. You've got nothing. The only difference between you and the man bleeding out on the side of the road is that you're not bleeding. That's it. It's the only thing you got over him. Well, you can still give. And he says later on, I think it's very close. Yes, here we go. Suppose, just going from what I just exactly said, suppose that it had not been one person who traveled from Jericho to Jerusalem, but there had been two, and that both of them had been attacked by robbers and maimed, and that no traveler came by. Then suppose that one of them knew of nothing to do other than moan, while the other disregarded and overcame his own suffering in order to speak comfortingly in friendly words, or in great pain, dragged himself over to a little pool of water in order to get a refreshing drink for the other person. Or suppose that both of them have been deprived of the ability to speak, but that one of them, in his silent prayer, sighed to God on behalf of the other. Was he not then merciful? If someone has cut off my hands, then I cannot play the zither. If someone has cut off my legs, then I cannot dance. And if I lie crippled upon the shore, then I cannot cast myself into the sea in order to save another person's life. And if I am lying with a broken arm or leg, I cannot dash into the flames to save others' lives, but I can nonetheless be merciful. Um, it is it is like a lot of other things for Kierkegaard in that this is something that happens inwardly first and then has an external reflection when you do that. So in the same way that you hide sins by internally before even the rationale or the relationality of dealing with a broken relationship or dealing with someone who sinned against you. Before that, you do the work in your heart of forgiving, and then reconciliation happens. So in the same relationship of forgiveness internally, reconciliation externally, Kierkegaard is saying you have mercifulness inwardly and you have generosity externally. The person who is merciful will give generously because they have ordered their heart in such a way that generosity happens. And when that generosity comes out, it will be actually merciful. It's not going to be a perfunctory giving. You're not going to give because, oh crap, somebody said something in church and I'll give my money. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not disparaging the fact that that happens to all of us. It is not to say that that doesn't have any value. But what Kierkegaard is saying is if you want to be someone who is habitually generous, you need to be habitually merciful in your heart inwardly. You need to it's like all the other things we talked about. There's inward work to be done to make the external work happen. And also the external work is doing that external work is what provides us the medium and the moments of doing these internal works, that there's that reflectivity and kind of circular motion to it. Thoughts?
Can I ask, what do you guys do with the panhandler situation? Could I give them money? Yeah. But I talk to social workers and stuff that say don't, because they don't use it for anything. But it doesn't always feel right. And when they're standing there, they're obviously hurting. What's the right thing to do?
I don't think that there is a right thing to do. I don't think that there is a right thing to do. Like, I don't think there's one. Um, my answer to that is, what I try to do, it's just, I have no idea if this is right. I try to just do whatever I'm feeling. Like, if I feel in the moment, I feel led to do it, I try to listen to that. If I don't, I don't. But I think, um, there are a lot of ways. You cannot, like, we are not Christ. We cannot be all things to all people in all situations and heal all hurts. And it is okay to accept with sadness that I cannot go make every homeless person not homeless. And even if I could, there even might be better, like, who knows? But I think we can I think we can live lives in ways that we are open to being talked by the Holy Spirit to do something in situations, and I think listening to that and being open to it is a good thing. But I have no answer as to I don't think there is a single answer to that. I think that some people are called to do more for them than others. Not I don't obviously, given what we're reading, I don't mean that rich people are called to do more and poor people aren't. But I think that if that is your heart, do it. And if not, the one thing that's universal is don't harden your heart. Don't don't um don't think that, don't let not giving to them often uh make you think of them as anything other than us, except for there go the grace of God. You know, man, I butchered that idiom. But you know what I mean.
Well, I think, cause for my work, I drive all over the place. And not that long ago, I saw a corner where somebody had been, asking for money, and it was clear that people had given this person, like boxes of some food, some donuts and stuff like that. He was gone and all the junk is there. I'm like, oh my goodness, all the trash. Now who's gonna clean that up? But the other thing is that, I do know too that in like downtown Grand Rapids, and this may be the way to support, is that there are lots of programs that to get people off the street. In fact, we were walking on Division yesterday and there was clearly like, there's a new project there that is to get people off the street. And I know they've done this in other cities, so I think supporting those programs.
Yeah.
To get people off the street instead of those individuals who. Yeah, may or may not, real quick, like when on our exchange student, she and I had gone into Chicago, and when we got off the train, we were given these boxes of cereal, small, half boxes or whatever they were, and we carried them around with us all day. Now we're heading back towards the train, and there was somebody asking for money, and for food, and we're like, oh, wait, we have these boxes of cereal. And he's like, no, I don't want those. There was a man across the street watching, and he said, I'll take those boxes of cereal. And we're like, okay, so we walk him over to him. He's like, yeah, he's just gonna go buy alcohol if you gave him money. And we're like, you may find that person who will take that box of cereal and, that type of thing. So that is a really tough one.
It's a tough one, and in
Yeah.
the reverse, when you were talking about the poor, they need to be merciful too. They know they're putting us in an awkward
Right, yeah,
position. Is that showing us
mercy.
which is
So
a weird way to go?
Merciful is embracing the awkwardness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not enabling, like statistically, I've looked this up, because I got looked at the front, nobody in this country dies of starvation. Nobody in this country dies of, now maybe there's somebody, but generally speaking, nobody died. There's food insecure, there's that terminology that around there.
yeah.
But like, especially in Grand Rapids, we generally have more beds per capita for our household population than most other I'm talking about. big
Yeah,
cities.
gotcha.
And at the church I was at before, we used to run a breakfast for homeless folks every month. And the homeless folks are there, very nice people, very good people, but they knew, all right, this is the day to be at Emmanuel, this is the day to be at this
Yeah,
one, this.
Yeah, no, that's.
This one, here's when you're supposed to be at God's kitchen, here's when you're supposed
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
doing that.
they know where to get the showers, they
There is one.
learn the system.
Actually, there are volunteers, if you're looking for something to do, we helped hand out food to food insecure, there's a Kent Community Action or something, and they got all the food there, and they go hand it out, and so there's so many opportunities to access food in our country and in our city, so they might have other issues going on.
Yeah.
But they're not dying of starvation.
Yeah, I think it's such an individual circumstance, because I know we were in Chicago one time and we had some leftover Gino's East pizza. And I saw a mom and her child, on the sidewalk. I was like, oh, we got all that leftover pizza. And I gave it to them and they seemed very appreciative. Here they were gonna go, I don't know, sell it in my trunk. I don't know, that one seemed good, but then we've had other circumstances with Mandela where we literally took this guy to Salvation Army, etc., bought him some boots and some winter
A jacket.
jacket and that white hat. And we even followed up with him. He was living behind Fountain Street Church, and we kind of kept in touch with him for a while, and then things just kind of fell apart. He found him a place to live, but then he stole from those folks, and then it just got bad, and so that wasn't a good situation. But I think what Ethan's talking about makes so much more sense, because there's so many dégagés and these other places where it's good to go in there. We volunteered at one of these places one time, serving food, and so there's a system in place here. Grand Rapids, that I think is really good about taking care of the folks that are homeless and others that are poor, etc. And I think if we knew more about that, then there's less guilt or less awkwardness or less, like even this Mandela, we just said, no, here, we're gonna show you this dégagé place, which he may have even known of, and may have been just playing the system or finding some suckers like us, who were even, he wanted to do an admission to the YMCA, or maybe he wanted us to sign him up, oh, then I can shower there and stuff. Things were just, it was pretty clear he was exploiting our naivete and other things where we're just like, are we idiots, or are we trying to show this crazy love towards this gentleman? And it was just weird, and
But I think supporting those, there's lots of, and the church, State Christian Church supports many, so, yeah.
And if you remember Dave Hazlett, I know he used to go down to Dégagé like all the time and help out there. That's probably a more effective approach to it.
There's one that Debbie organized where they came in and spoke to the church, and I can't remember what the name of the organization was, but they had coupons for free meals. They're like, don't give them money, give them these coupons for free meals. But I think it was also pretty straightforward. You see some that are much more excited to take them than others. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest, there's a
But-
lot of mental
And I
health.
think the Kierkegaard thing though, like, even though you were doing that, even though you got taken advantage, like the mercy and the generosity, I mean, it's still, I don't wanna say it counts, cause it's not like anybody's keeping score, but it's still in that moment, right? You're demonstrating a behavior, so you shouldn't beat yourself up about it if you do get taken advantage, but in the same
Right.
sense, you can show that generosity in other ways, and sometimes that way may be saying, I'm actually being generous by not giving this to you, but giving it to an organization where I know it will be.
Right, that enables.
Yeah.
I think that what Kierkegaard would say about all this is that these are not unimportant questions. They're just not the most important question. That because again, for Kierkegaard, these worldly situations will pass. And that is and he says this over and over again, and no, there's no way to differentiate or to diminish the suffering that comes from being poor or homeless or mentally ill, or all of these situations in which some have more than others. But I think what he's trying to say is that from the perspective of eternity, it will matter less whether or not you gave to this or that poor person, or whether or not they accepted it and did with it what you hoped that they would do with it, than that you lived a life in which you were constantly trying to see all those around you as co-equal creations before God, And, and as he says here, no thinker is as certain as eternity that finally people must indeed give way and think his thought. For it says, just wait, we will talk later in eternity. For there we will talk solely and exclusively about mercifulness and solely and exclusively about the distinction merciful, not merciful. Would that I would produce the face that eternity will put on when to the question of whether or not he has been merciful, the rich man replies, I've given 100,000 to the poor. For eternity will look upon him in amazement as someone who cannot get into his head what he's talking about. And then we'll present him again with a question. Yes, okay, but have you been merciful? I think that those little questions matter. Like that's one that I've struggled with a lot. But I think what matters a lot more is what am I, regardless of what I do, I shouldn't say matters more. I think that it matters more to what Kierkegaard was talking about right now. Is it matters less what I do in that situation externally as so much as it does what have I done internally to make sure that I am thinking of them as a human being. That maybe not, maybe this is not, maybe not the best way for me to do is to give them money and alleviate maybe the best thing to do is just talk to them for 5 minutes. Maybe the best thing is to go home and I've been moved by the poverty that I see and I need to spend a couple weeks praying that God would change my heart about how I think about them. Or maybe I need to go home and talk to my wife when we do our budget and talk about what we can do going forward to feel like we're doing something with this. But all of that happens internally and happens in a way that, okay, I'm not gonna let this or what I do in this one moment. I'm not gonna let one did I give or did I not give define how I feel about this person, what I think about being merciful, like what I do internally, how I love them in the future, what kind of person I become because of I have this situation. So I think that the important part is, for what Kierkegaard is saying, is that that inward shift. Or I guess to put the whole thing another way, your question would look, I think Kierkegaard would say that question is going to look different the more you start doing the internal work he's talking about being merciful. That those questions and the answers you find of them are going to look different. He's not going to tell you what those answers are going to be, because who knows? Because that is a relationship between the Lord and you, a very unique human being with different gifts and different struggles. If that helps at all. I think, I guess I think that Kierkegaard is kind of channeling in this, beware of what kills the soul, not what kills the body. And it will more as you said, in this country at least, more than likely you're not going to kill the body of a homeless person by not giving them money in this one situation. You will, however, kill your soul by not being merciful and not working to be more merciful and by viewing them as less than human. Just one more paragraph here. Is it mercifulness to give 100,000 to the poor? No. Is it mercifulness to give half a shilling to the poor? No. Mercifulness is how it is given. But in that case, the 100,000 and the half shilling are, of course, matters of indifference. That is, I can just as well see mercifulness in one or the other. That is, the mercifulness can be fully as apparent in the half shilling as in the 100,000 that are given. But if I can see mercifulness just as well in the half shilling as in the 100,000, then I can actually see it best in the half shilling, for the 100,000 possess an accidental significance that can so easily draw itself to the attention of the senses, and therefore disturb me in seeing the mercifulness. Is it mercifulness when the person who is able to do everything does everything for the wretched person? No. Is it mercifulness when the person who can do nothing does nothing for the wretched person? No. Mercifulness is how this everything and this nothing are done. But then, of course, I can just as well see the mercifulness in this everything and in this nothing. And if this is the case, I can actually see it best in this nothing. For being able to do everything is a glittering externality that possesses an accidental significance, that indeed does have a powerful effect, on the sensate part of me, easily attracting attention to itself and disturbing me in seeing the mercifulness. Let me illustrate this again. If you wish to observe the movements, the circles that a stone produces and forms when it is thrown into the water, would you then travel to those faraway countries where the mighty cataracts plunge down the turbulence and spray and throw a stone out in the water there? Or would you throw it into the tempestuous sea? No, you would not. For despite the fact that there, as everywhere, the stone would produce movements and cause circles to form, you would be difficult in seeing them properly. Therefore, you would surely make the exact opposite choice and seek a small, quiet pond. The smaller the better. Throw out the stone, and then, undisturbed by everything irrelevant, you would properly focus your attention on observing the movements. What do you understand by a person of significant means? Surely, indeed, a person who has significant inner worth? If you were indeed serious about wanting to immerse yourself in properly observing a person of this sort, would you then wish to see him surrounded by enormous wealth or decked out with medals and ribbons? Or wouldn't you believe that it was precisely things of this sort that would disturb you in concentrating your mind entirely upon observing his significant inner existence? Thus, too, with mercifulness. Mercifulness is what is truly significant. But the 100,000 or doing everything in the worldly sense is this significant gift, this significant help to the world. But the one significance, of course, is that which is to be looked at, and the other is that which is to be looked away from. And out of mistrust of yourself, you therefore wish to get rid of that from which you are indeed to look away. Alas, whereas the world thinks it is much easier to be aware of mercifulness when it gives 100,000 than when it gives the half shilling, thus it thinks it is easiest to be aware of mercifulness by looking at that from which from which one is to look away from if one is properly to see mercifulness. So, a lot of words, but I like that what he's saying is, look, even when we're trying to see mercifulness in ourselves, we tend to look at the grand gestures. We tend to look at how have I been merciful this year? Well, twice I gave $5,000, and it hurt a little bit. Like that was a big deal. Like gave a lot of money for for me twice a year, and that's what we think of. But Kierkegaard is saying, yeah, okay, but that's actually a distraction. Like, what did you do moment by moment? What did you do in all these little moments when you were still, when you were quiet? What did you do in your inner, like, what did you do to cultivate mercifulness throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout this year? Like, what have you done? Like those, the external realities that happen because I've done the work of mercifulness in my heart, those will come as a matter of course. Don't focus on those. Focus on what you were doing to become a person who does these things. And, I think that we do tend to do the opposite. I mean, have I been merciful? Well, the first thing I'm going to go to is what are the big ones that I remember? But I think that we're just saying, hey, that's the reverse order. That's just not how you're going to get it to happen more often in your life. Focus on doing the internal work that is going to make you someone who, at the very least, let's put some skin on it. Like at the very least, someone who looks at the homeless person and doesn't look past them anymore, whose heart is twinged, and that becomes we talked about how Kierkegaard is constantly putting stuff in the path to trip, to make you, to make it not easy to just coast. It's another one of those things. Like do this mercifulness, and I guarantee you those questions are going to pop up a lot more, and they're going to bother you more, and it's going to be harder. But that's the path we're called to. We're not called to. We're not called. There's no Christian autopilot, and if you're on autopilot, you're not. You're simply not living existentially in the way that Kierkegaard says Christ calls us to. And the only two responses to that are you're right, crap, I'll try harder, or I disagree with you. And the next one is the second one is hard to defend. It's hard to say that no, we're not called to live as Christ did in every moment. But
isn't that a bit of a stewardship passage too when he's talking about where to put the stone? Like put it where it's gonna have.
I don't think so. I don't think that is a valid application. I mean, or not. I know exactly why you would think that. That's not what he's doing here. He's talking about like why would you? He's talking about how you can see what's actually going on in your heart. Remove yourself from all the stuff that the world looks at. Like take it. Like what he's saying is it's easier to see the effects that small things happen when you do them in quiet, small places. So for example, if I want to see mercifulness in a human heart, I would look at small daily little interactions. I wouldn't like, I'm gonna see that much more easily than I am, is Bill Gates a merciful person? Well, look at all of well, yeah, but that's just, he's got a ton of stuff, so he can do a ton of stuff. But I don't know what he's like in his daily life. I don't know what he's like in his heart. I'd have to know the man to know whether he's merciful, to know whether he's actually somebody who's generous. Because it's easy for a billionaire to give away $500 million. He's still got $500 million. Who knows what's going on? It's great that he does it. But so I think that I think he's not necessarily talking about results at all here. He's just like saying, if you want to examine this in your heart, don't look at the big stuff that you've done. Just look at your daily small things that you're doing in your heart. But yeah, again, I don't. What you're saying is,
But it's like actions without proper motivation are kind of empty. But if you have the proper motivation, you'll probably have good action.
yes. And also if you are doing the hard work of um the parable that I think of is the sower, like the one who really prepares the ground and cultivates is going to get, going to see fruit. But it's you don't walk out to a field and be like, where's my corn? Where's my generosity? Like, well, you didn't sow any seed, and you didn't water it, and you didn't do any of the stuff to make this field a cornfield. Like, you just thought by having a field you'd get corn. There's a lot of stuff that happens, internally. And well, just read the last page. Eternity understands only mercifulness. Therefore, if you want to learn to understand mercifulness, you must learn it from eternity. But if you are to understand the eternal, you must be surrounded by stillness while you concentrate your attention entirely on inwardness. Alas, the 100,000, they make noise. At any rate, they could so easily become, oh good gracious. Alas, the 100,000, they make noise. At any rate, they could so easily come to make noise. You become, as it were, dizzy in your head at the thought of being able to give away 100,000 as easily as you give 4 shillings. Your mind gets distracted. You come to think about the splendid circumstances associated with being able to be charitable on such a scale. But then, of course, what is disturbed is the eternal. That the splendid, the blessed, the most blessed condition is to practice mercifulness. And now, might and power. Once again, this so easily disturbs the mind. You become astonished at external things. But if you are astonished, then you can be certain that what you are seeing is not mercifulness, for that does not arouse astonishment. What indeed is there to be astonished at, if even the most wretched, and indeed he best of all, can practice mercifulness? Ah, mercifulness. If in truth you see it, it does not arouse astonishment, it moves you, precisely because it is inwardness, because it makes the most inward impression upon you. But when is inwardness more distinct than when there is nothing external whatsoever, or when, by its paltriness and insignificance, the external is more of an opposition and, understood in sensate fashion, is actually a hindrance to seeing the inwardness. And when this is the case in relation to mercifulness, then we indeed have the mercifulness that has here been spoken of, the mercifulness that is a work of love, even if it has nothing to give and is able to do nothing.
I feel your explanation, I can really relate to that on sowing the seeds and what do you get from it, because you really do have to start with the soil and amend the soil, test it, amend it, do this, make sure the soil's good, and then you do the seeds and you put your fence around it so the deer don't eat it, and all this stuff before you can get to that beautiful plant or edible plant or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of work on the forefront before you get this, your results. And I can really relate to that. That to me makes a lot of sense to this whole, what is merciful? Because you say the word merciful or mercy, and like it doesn't, not that it doesn't mean much to me, but I can't vision it. I'm a visionary, so like, but the ground and then the plant, that I can really vision.
Yeah, and to close out, just the good thing to remember that is that the fruit, in that analogy, the corn that comes up is not, good acts, in the world, or like changing worldly, the fruit is your soul. And when we talk about the fruit of the fruit of the spirit is not, like better world, better it will create that. But the fruit of the soul, joy, peace, love, kindness, self-control, like they're all the fruit is you. And so, when you water the field that is your soul in this context, you don't get, oh, that means that my actions and my mercifulness in the world will have a better effect. No, I will become more merciful. I will become someone who does more generous acts. I will become somebody who when I look at another human being does just a little bit less of that. Oh, they're probably a drunk, or this person doesn't have a work ethic. That's why they're there. All those little things that we do to excuse, you do less of that. And if you do less of that, you will find yourself in more situations in which you are able to be generous. And you will be more generous because you are more merciful in your heart. And like I said, I don't know what all those situations look like. Like if me and Ethan did just as much, were just as earnest about our inwardness, the way that we would react to different situations would be different because we're different people. But we would react internally in the same way, which is I am more and more coming into these situations seeing other children of God, and more realizing not just that they are not worse than me, but that I am not better than them. I think the thing that if I could get works of love down to like one sentence, it would be work really hard to strip away everything in your life that makes you think that you are any different than anyone else. Eternity looks at all of us the same. We're all the same, but there is no difference. The mentally ill, randomly screaming, insane stuff person that I saw downtown yesterday is just as much a child of God. Jesus loves her the same, the exact same. Like that is where Kierkegaard is trying to get us, I think, and where Christ is trying to get us. And the world is desperate to get us not to do that because the world runs on the exact opposite. It runs on greed and selfishness and all of the things. And it's not to say that this world isn't beautiful, but the world runs on that. Like if there's the old joke that if everyone became truly Christian overnight in America, the country's economy would fall apart immediately because it runs on greed and it runs on selfishness. It would all collapse overnight. But joking aside, the world conspires to keep us from being aware. Like the irony of this book, Works of Love, is that it doesn't talk a lot about external works like you think it would. And the reason for that is it's just trying to make you more aware. It's trying to raise your awareness of what is going on in your heart and in your relationship with God and with yourself and with others in ways that hey, listen, if you become more aware, if you have these, if you pay attention to all the rocks that you can trip over in this easy path, if you start putting some rocks into your path to make it harder for yourself internally, if you start doing that, then you are going to do more actual works of love. He's not trying to teach you how to do specifically every work of love. He's trying to teach you how to become someone who is dealing with all those situations of opportunities to do good works. Yeah.
So back to Darcy's question, what about the homeless? And it's such a personal response, and the answer to me is that it's just very subjective, and that it depends on each individual and how the Holy Spirit is guiding you. And I'm thinking of years ago when I was reading the Chicago Tribune, it was talking about this rich business executive out in maybe Lake Bluff or wherever you were talking about, or somewhere in the suburbs of Chicago, rich guy, every Thanksgiving, him and his wife would put together these massive Thanksgiving meals, put them in their containers, bring them to Lower Wacker Drive, and disperse them to maybe 20, 30 different homeless people. And I'm assuming that was his way of responding to his feelings, perhaps Holy Spirit or not, that this is my way of giving back. And maybe he just did that once a year, but that was his thing. And I'm thinking back in my 20s when I had mornings open, and so I found out about Meals on Wheels, and so I started delivering Meals on Wheels. And by doing it, I was receiving this helper's high, they've talked about. And I was having these Holy Spirit moments with some of these seniors, and I was like, it was just one of those things where it was so validating to me that this is what God wants me to be doing with my time in the morning before work. And so this is how I'm responding to what I feel I should be doing to give back. And it just felt like a very Holy Spirit type directed situation. And so we all have our different ways of responding to that, and it's unique to each and every one of us. So there's no like real clear answer, like,
Nope.
here's what we should be doing. The gentleman took his Thanksgivings to do that. I was taking my mornings twice a week to do that, and we'll know
Yep.
we'll feel it, and it'll benefit us, through that helper's high and just that total clarity that we're doing the right thing. And but we've had experiences where it backfired and we weren't doing the right thing, or we don't know, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Just keep pushing forward, and maybe we'll find your own little niche of how it is. So I'm done that one.
Yeah, and just to close, that is why Kierkegaard is saying that all these externalities, it's not that they're unimportant, it's just they're not universal. You can't talk about them because we're all different. The things that are universal are inward. When the Bible says the fruits of the Spirit are these things, that's universal. When you the more you have the Holy Spirit in you, the more you are loving and kind and peaceful. The ways that goes into the world are different. The way because every person is different, but the inward part, the becoming aware that we've talked about in these situations, the becoming more merciful, more forgiving, more that looking to all with the eyes of eternity. Those are universal experiences that are actuated in an infinite number of number of external ways. But this part is universal. We can all be earnest. We can all be more aware, and we can all look at every other human being with the eyes of God, because the eyes of God is infinite and eternal. But let me pray, and then we'll go eat some food if we haven't already. Father, I thank you for the blessing of community. Thank you that we have a church that wants to further the understanding of you, further our understanding of what you have for us to do. Thank you for the ways that you provide an infinite amount of moments in every day as literal opportunities to do and to be like you. Thank you for the strictness that you have to call us and remind us that we have failed, and show us where we fail. But also thank you for your infinite loving kindness and your mercy in forgiving us when we fail, and then also for your endless encouraging spirit that says we are more capable than we believe ourselves to be, that you have for us a self that is greater than we could even conceive of to be, and that you fully believe that we can be that. Thank you for your encouragement. I pray that you would take all of what we learned in these 10 weeks and help us to change little by little into people who do as we hear and to think as we do. And I pray all this in your name. Amen. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I think probably we'll do just something in the fall, take the summer off, because it's pretty difficult to get, like herding cats, to get everybody to, summer schedules are nuts. I know mine are, but, all I've got is a wife and kids, so, but, yeah, I think we'll do something in the fall. If you guys have ideas or stuff you're thinking about, my guess is, unless we really don't want to do that, I'll probably just do some like basic theology. Just do like topical, like ecclesiology, soteriology, just salvation, all the basic topics, one per week. And then just do some more, less reading, more teaching. But if we're not interested in that, we can always do something else. But I'll keep the list out and kind of through the summer when I'm thinking through, I'll just shoot out some emails and you guys can let me know what you think. If you're like, "Bleh, sounds so boring, tell me, please." But yeah, we'll go from there. Josh, do you have two phones? I've been so
I
distracted.
didn't.
I've been so distracted.
There's my phone and Batman's phone.
Gotcha.
The phone and, no?
Or phone.
Gotcha. That has got to be wild.
That's fun.
Not about the attitude.
No, I have that too. I have a work phone, but I don't have to.
Oh, I have that thing.
You do?
Yeah.
Mhm.